Welcome to this tutorial to create a widget that can contain an image captured from a scene capture component 2D. So first of all, we'll create a folder for the project files to go into. Here I've already created a third person project. So we'll click on the content folder, right click in the content browser, and we'll create a new folder. Let's call this UI. So we'll go into that folder, right click, and let's create a widget blueprint. We'll open up that widget blueprint, and then inside of here we've got a canvas panel on the left hand side. What we need to do is click that and drag in image, and then we can select that within the user interface, drag it out, move it around to where you want it. So then what we need to do is we need to expand the brush section on the right hand side, and here is where we can actually define what image is going to be displayed inside of this widget. So what we're going to need is a render target which the scene capture component 2D will render into. So let's go and create that. So we'll right click into that same folder and we'll go to materials and textures, and we'll create a render target. And then we need to add a scene capture component to the scene. So on the left hand side we'll search for scene, and we'll select scene capture component, and we'll drag that within the viewport, and let's point the camera at something. If we right click the camera we can choose to pilot the scene capture. That now shows what the camera is actually looking at, and we can use the standard viewport controls, right clicking in the viewport and using the WASD keys to navigate around. And let's point the camera to something interesting. So then what we need to do is actually attach the render target to this scene capture component. So we've already created the render target, so we'll drag that into the texture target slot for the scene capture component. That now gets the scene capture component to render out to that render target, which we'll later use to display within the widget. So now that we've positioned the scene capture component, we can eject ourselves from it by clicking this little icon at the top left hand side. That now makes it so that the viewport is controllable again, independent from the scene capture component 2D. So the next step is to go to the widget blueprint and attach the render target to the image widget. For some reason this doesn't work with attaching the actual render target to the brush. So if we select the image and apply the render target, it doesn't display within the widget, and I don't understand why. Let's set the size. And then the next step is to attach the widget to the viewport when we actually begin play. So to do this we need to go to the level blueprint. So if we go to the top where we've got blueprints, choose open level blueprint, and inside of here we need to right click and add the begin play event. So event begin play. And then from here we're going to create the widget. So we'll type in create widget, attach that, select the widget that we created, BP widget 1, This now creates a widget that we can use, so we could right click and promote to variable, define a name for that. And from there on we need to drag off the pin, and we can type in add to viewport. This should now add this widget to the viewport when we actually begin play. Let's compile that, save it, and we'll save all as well. Now when we actually begin play, we don't get the widget displayed on the window. So what we need to do for the next step is, instead of using the render target directly, is we'll create a material to house this render target. So we right click inside the content browser, choose material, specify a name, we'll open that up, and to make this so that it can actually work with a widget, we need to change the material domain to be user interface, and then we'll drag in the render target, and set the RGB pin to the final color pin. We'll then choose save, go back to the widget, back to the image widget, and add onto in the brush section where we've got image, we'll add in the new material that we've created, which is m_render target material 1. That now displays that material inside of the image. So we'll compile that, go back and rerun the game, and now we have on the left hand side the render target, which is coming from the scene capture component, being used with inside the user interface material and then been displayed with inside the widget in the viewport. So if we move around with the player, we should now see that within the material. Hopefully this makes it a little bit easier for you to use a render target with inside a widget with a scene capture component. Thanks for joining me.